Quite a lot to unpick there, even though it was a 1-1 draw, based on both teams' approaches, really. And the stats make interesting reading, but the possession stat for Arsenal would indicate, Theo, that they dominated the game, and even the touch in the opposition box. And yet you didn't feel like Manchester City were under siege, did you?
No, I mean, all the possession that Arsenal had, I've got to disagree with Mikel Arteta saying the fact that they played better than last year. I mean, you won 5-1. I mean, you obviously get a result, draw today in the last few minutes. But for me, it was a completely lackluster game for Arsenal in the first half, particularly. It really was. It was not Arsenal we're used to. And it was really a bit of a surprise, the lineup as well, which surprised a few people. But you have all these options and there was an attacking threat and you don't utilise it.
When you say that the lineup surprised you, are you talking about that midfield balance? Are you talking about Eze being on the bench?
Yeah, for me, when you sign a player like Eze, the game changer, so we just call him, or however you want to call these guys, fans want to see these players play. They want to play in these big games. They want to see people actually be able to take risks. And I feel like in these games, if you want to get results, you have to be able to take those risks. And at this moment in time, Arsenal aren't doing that. I was just disappointed in Eze's part, actually, not to actually play, to be honest, in the starting lineup. And I think, obviously, it changed in half-time, didn't it, bring them on.
Let's go back to that first half, then, that you were talking about, and a lack of intensity. Why?
Well, for me, obviously, Arsenal had a lot more time to prepare for this game.
Because they played Tuesday, City played Thursday.
And when I say lack of intensity, it was more the fact that these players were out of sync and the options weren't available to the likes of Saliba. In past, obviously Declan Rice would make a move, but there was no options, and the easy options to come outside and go and recycle the ball. But they were going long quite often that led to nothing. And this was a general pattern. And the flow of Arsenal, the first touch, Gyökeres, not quite happening for him today. Again, it was more the fact it was a bit sloppy. And Gabriel here, we'd be a bit calm in these circumstances. And again, it's just more the rhythm that felt nervous today for Arsenal watching them. The easy option here for Rice to go out to Saliba and Rice, but when I talk about habits, they played like they didn't know each other today. That was the side of it, going long to Timber. It's not often it happens. Rice calm on the ball, plenty of options. Again, he goes long to Madueke. How often do we see Madueke get the ball in this height? We never see this. So for me, this was the difference in the first half. Little things like this, poor decision-making, the energy wasn't there, and just the final pass here, when you look at to make the difference, this was the disappointing for me. When I'm talking about dominate, for me, that wasn't in the first half.
Does that partly come? I know I'm going back to the midfield thing, and Mikel Arteta was quite defensive about that afterwards. He said nobody criticised the midfield in Bilbao, and it was the same midfield. Yeah. In the Premier League, Rice and Mourinho, when they've started together in midfield, they've only won one of the 10 Premier League games that they've featured. Is it a defensive midfield that's the problem there?
Well, I think there's a number of players that like to play that position. I think Mourinho isn't at number 10. I'd like to see maybe someone like Eze up there who's going to be a bit more creative. We've got some similar players, and when you have a number of players that are left-footers as well, Mourinho and Zubamendi are very similar in that sense. So for me, at times, they get in each other's way. And I think the balance isn't right for me in that position.
Arsenal delivered a lackluster performance against Manchester City, leaving fans frustrated and demanding more from the team. From the first whistle, City's intensity and sharpness outclassed Arsenal, who struggled to find rhythm, creativity, and the cutting edge needed in such a massive clash. Key players looked off the pace, with misplaced passes, weak defending, and a lack of urgency in the final third. Manchester City took advantage, dominating possession and dictating the flow of the match, while Arsenal seemed second best throughout. For a team with ambitions to compete for the Premier League title and make a statement in Europe, this display raised concerns about mentality and consistency. The players must show more hunger, composure, and discipline if they are to compete at the very top level. Arteta will know his squad has to respond quickly, with bigger challenges ahead and no room for complacency. Please like and subscribe at the ending.